So welcome everybody. My name is Kelly Lindsay. I'm speaking to you today from Navajo country. So where am I? I'm in Flagstaff at Northern Arizona University. And in fact, after this webinar, I have a meeting with the Dean, Ashok Subramanian with the W.P. Frank College School of Business here at Northern Arizona University. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to take you through an orientation of both Luminary and the engagement survey. And we're going to introduce you to our team. We're going to talk about the successful strategic science fund that Luminary was awarded. We're going to give you an overview of the business school engagement survey. And finally, we're going to talk about the application in terms of the survey reports, how it's going to be used to help you advance your engagement strategies, and how we'll be able to build knowledge and collaboration networks. So that's the agenda, and looking forward to taking you through this. First of all, here's our team. We've got Terry Lynn Morrison, who just started January 3rd as our Chief Program Officer. Morgan Murphy, our Manager of Programs and Membership. Tasha Brooks just started now, April 1, as our Senior Research Lead. She's also an Assistant Professor at Royal Roads University. Craig Hall, our Senior VP of Strategy and Innovation. Adam Patras, our Manager of Knowledge Systems and Website and IT. Subhash Biswal, who manages all the finance and admin, and myself as the Chief Executive Transformation Officer. So the Strategic Science Fund. This was a almost 2-year competition. You heard about this through various networks. We were one of 24 organizations awarded, the only Indigenous initiative. And so we received $5 million over 5 years. It gives us enough money to do some staffing up, seek funding partners, create matching funds, and start to design and implement the Luminary programs and strategies to support you. And one of those objectives is this survey that we're doing. But let's start with the journey. Let's start with how this got started. And it goes back to 2019. And in 2019, we were doing some work and with MyTax and others, and we developed and did a concept document called a National Initiative to Increase Research Collaborations and Indigenous Business Innovation. In the fall, we ran Inclusion Works 19, where we brought 250 people together and really talked about adopting and building a research and innovation agenda. In 2020, many of you on this call were part of the Luminary Charter Partners. This was 150 partners, about 78 universities, business schools, academics, Indigenous businesses, NGOs. And through 2021, through COVID, with 14 strategy sessions, we created the Luminary strategy with 8 program streams. Now, we still had no core funding. We were doing projects. We did a number of very interesting projects on decolonizing and indigenizing curriculum, to work on agri-food with the Protein Industry Council. So we did a number of projects, and then we had applied for and received the Luminary Strategic Science Fund Award, which now gives some stability and obviously some capacity to really accelerate the work ahead. So why did we do this? Back in 2020 and 2021, we uncovered this engagement gap. There has been work done in law school, social work, education, not so much in the business and economic arena. And so we really need this idea of economic reconciliation. And there was a jaded view of research. It's been done to us and on us. Research systems are broken. We need Indigenous-led initiatives in this whole area of nothing about us without us. But there was a spark. There was a real interest and a desire to see how we could bring together players from the business schools, the academic communities, Indigenous businesses to start and grow this new ecosystem and move from doing research on problems to research on solutions, how to grow healthy economies, healthy communities, and a healthy workforce, which is that great green picture. So here are the Luminary objectives. We'll send these. These are succinctly presented here for you, but it really is back to building on the strategy of 2021. Increase research and innovation collaborations, increase the knowledge and competencies, and produce new knowledge assets. We got to increase more business student and research talent. And we can do that by indigenizing curriculum pedagogy and indigogy. Indigogy is indigenous ways of knowing and doing. Conduct a business school engagement scan, number 5. And lastly, increase the capacity, talent, knowledge, and cultural competency of everybody in the ecosystem to really create that economic transformation and well-being that we're seeking. So the Indigenous innovation innovation ecosystem is presented here. We have players from different areas coming together to co-create solutions, ideas, and strategies. So with that, I'd now like to turn it over to Terry Lynn Morrison, our Chief Program Officer, to introduce the Business Engagement Survey.
Thanks, Kelly. Good afternoon, everybody. So the next slides are going to give a high-level overview of the Indigenous Engagement Survey Initiative and why it's an important step forward for business schools. So we're going to talk about why a survey, the Luminary Business School Working Group that was established in 2023 to now. We'll go over the survey structure, talk about the Luminary Survey Support Team for Business Schools. We'll talk about the engagement survey reports and how the engagement data, information, and knowledge will accelerate curriculum, research, and engagement strategies. So on to the next slide. So why do a business school Indigenous engagement survey? First, the survey will provide a comprehensive picture of Indigenous engagement across business schools, looking at practices, strategies, curriculum, research, networks, and partnerships. It also gives us a benchmark so we can see where we are now, identify gaps, and track our progress over time, because this is going to be done not only this year, but for the next 4 years. One of the most exciting outcomes of this initiative is the role of knowledge mobilization. We're not just gathering information, we're creating a learning multiplier. That means turning data into shared insights, resources, and innovations that can be scaled across institutions to accelerate change. Through this process, we're already seeing new networks and collaborations beginning to form. These emerging connections between schools, Indigenous communities, and researchers open the door to richer, more impactful engagement. We're also exploring new models for curriculum design, research, and community partnerships that are cost-effective, scalable, and highly impactful. So by working collectively, business schools can achieve far more than they could in isolation. This is a true example of economies of scale and shared value. So finally, this work strengthens the business school brand, demonstrating leadership, relevance, and commitment to Indigenous inclusion. It enhances our value to students, partners, and communities while also deepening our impact on economies, industries, and social outcomes. This isn't just about reporting data. It's about building a shared future where Indigenous engagement is woven into the very fabric of how business schools teach, research, and lead. So before we get going, we want to thank our Luminary Business School Working Group and our collaborators. So we've been working with the Association of Canadian Business Schools, the Business School Association of Canada, and Polytechnics Canada. They've helped us push out the Indigenous Engagement Survey. We also have, on the next slide, you'll see a long list of our business school working group from 2023 to present. All of these academics, Indigenous leaders, professors, directors have shaped the Indigenous Engagement Survey. They've been a part of the brainstorming team. They've been a part of all of the work that has gone into it. So we want to thank them for their hard work. I won't go through the list, but you can scan it quickly to see if anybody from your business school is on that list. And we're very grateful for the work that they've done to help get this to where it is today. Now, if we go over to some of the work that the Business School Working Group has done. So since 2023, they developed a terms of reference. In 2023-24, the design and build engagement concept, scan, and survey were done. In 2024, we hired our partner Malates to build the online survey instrument, and you'll have an opportunity to meet Malates shortly in the presentation. In 2025, the survey testing was done with universities and college business school deans. So we did test the survey before we sent it out. And at the same time, it went through ethics approval with Carleton University. That brings us to where we are now. So on March 17th, the survey was sent to business school deans across the country, and it's open for the next 2 months. So it closes on May 16th, and we're hoping to have the engagement reporting available in August to September of this year. So we know that doing the survey is quite, it's something to take on. It's very comprehensive. So we realized that you might need some support. So what we did is we hired Michael Mihalihitz and Dr. Tasha Brooks to help with if you have any problems when you're doing the survey, you're not sure, is this relevant? Should I upload this? Like in terms of the content, you can reach out to one of these two and they'll be happy to assist you and walk you through any questions that you may have regarding the content of the survey and how you're responding. And then we also have the Malatest team that are available for any technical database questions that you may be having. Maybe you're not able to log in, you're not sure if you saved your data, because you can log in and log out and save your data as you're working on the program. So they're there to help you with all of the more technical questions that you have as you're answering the survey. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the Malatest team. So we have Derek Hughes and Daniela Garcia Grandon here to walk us through a bit more details in terms of the engagement scan. So over to you, Derek and Daniela.
Thank you, Terry Lynn. Just a few points from me before Daniela talks us through a few slides. First thing is, when organizations provide this kind of potentially sensitive information, they want a little bit of an assurance as to where this data is going, who's owning it. So I think that's one reason why I'm here, is just to speak to that a little bit. If you have any questions, of course, I'm here to answer them. So all the data is housed on secure servers. It's always retained within Canada, and the ownership of that data is always maintained by Luminary. The other thing I'll mention is that it's clear that Kelly has built a really strong team around him with strong skills in Indigenous knowledge and curriculum. We're here to add to that. We're here to add our expertise in the design and the hosting, the analysis and reporting of these kind of data. So we're happy to be here and support those efforts. With that, I'll turn it over to Daniela.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Yes, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the survey design. This is a longitudinal survey because it aims to assess the level of Indigenous engagement over time. This means that data will be collected regularly to the same institutions, hopefully. And the target are institutions, business schools specifically, rather than individuals within those business schools, collecting benchmarking information on Indigenous engagement at an organizational level. It also has a multi-informant design. What this means is that different components of the survey are best answered by different institutional roles. Then it follows a distributed response model where multiple respondents contribute to complete the questionnaire. So you can divide the different modules of the survey among different people. It also has a self-administered format. So the survey is designed as an online or a structured questionnaire that respondents can complete independently at their convenience using an online survey portal. The survey design includes also some convenient features. For example, this modular format and flexible completion allow these multiple informants that I just talked to complete as many modules as they want to complete at a time of their convenience. So allows that people get into the questionnaire, maybe look for some of the questions, and then, oh, okay, I don't know the answer of this, or maybe someone else can respond to this and then go back to it. Each institution will have a unique ID. And all the informants within that institution have to share the same ID. The survey also have a version control and tracking. This means that we have timestamps, and the survey has the ability to track and save your progress as you go through. We also have some validations and quality checks when needed. This means that some of the questions will pop up error message if something is obviously wrong, right? So for example, in some point you will be asked about the total enrollment and then about specific students such as undergrad students, graduate students, and then if you write by error a number that is higher than the total enrollment in one of those specific groups, you will have an error pop up. So you can, okay, this is wrong. I need to come back to this. Next slide, please. So now the questionnaire. So this questionnaire was designed in an iterative multi-stage approach. The stage one, it is the initial development. The team review past surveys, identifying key thematic areas and draft new questions as needed. In a stage two, it passed through several internal revisions with a core team. And then it opens up these revisions to a luminary working group input to see the response formats, the relevance, the wording, etc. In the stage three, we'll receive institutional feedback and validation. So from business school deans, and additional revisions were made. And then stage four, which was the survey was finally programmed and tested, and we implemented in a software called CalWeb. It's a Canadian platform that allows complete online data collection system. And then we still have multiple testing phases of this program survey, and then a final review. And now it is available to you all with the stage 5 with the survey deployment. And the next slide, we can see an example of what you are going to find, and this is where you are going to find the modules that I just discussed in past slides. So you're going to have these several modules that each of the different informants can access at any time, and then it's going to pop up a different in a dark black when you complete that respective model. But that is a little bit of what you are going to find in this survey. So I think now is come back to you, Terlene.
Thank you, Daniela. So now that we've walked through the purpose and process of the survey, let's talk about what comes next and how we'll put these findings to work in meaningful ways. So applying the engagement survey findings through new knowledge mobilization and sharing, curriculum collaborations, attracting Indigenous students, and innovation and research collaborations. We're going to walk you through a couple of slides to touch on that. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll give you an example of how we can accelerate knowledge mobilization and knowledge exchange networks. So in January of this year, just my first week on the job actually was off to Phoenix, Arizona, where we had 42 delegates, including business school deans, Indigenous academics and businesses and NGOs, come together with our partner, Northern Arizona University, to discuss Indigenous innovation and talk about how we can work together to advance this agenda. There's other opportunities that are coming up to talk about, the work that Luminary is doing. So for example, the National Aboriginal Capital Corporation, NACA, is having a prosperity forum May 8th here in Gatineau, just across the bridge from Ottawa, where Kelly and I will be there speaking about the work that we're doing. There's also the Indigenomics on Bay Street conference that's coming up November 7th in Toronto. And there's a lot of other Indigenous business and economic development organizations that will be engaging, such as CANDO, First Nations Finance Authority, First Nations Major Project Coalition, and Canadian Council for Indigenous Business, to give you an example of who we're partnering with and who we'll be talking to about this innovation agenda. Over to Kelly now to walk us through a couple more examples.
Excellent. So curriculum collaboration. So the survey itself is an opportunity for you to talk about any types of curriculum, content, episodes, pedagogy, Your priorities, maybe there are things that you would like to see incorporated into your school. So there's both this looking at what you're currently doing as well as setting priorities. This is going to accelerate. We use this word learning multiplier. There's going to be an opportunity to do some code creation and accelerate curriculum development and support faculty and staff in delivering Indigenous-informed and Indigenous-led curriculum in all areas of business school education. And that will then excite all the students about the impact of the $50 billion Indigenous industry that we have that's growing to $100 billion. So the impact, curriculum strategies are going to attract and even awaken more Indigenous business and research students. And it's going to increase the engagement and interest amongst our Indigenous business community, the academics at large, like agriculture, engineering, the business schools, of course, and research agencies and NGOs. Let's look at another example. Curriculum collaborations is an area of where we can build networks with like-minded experts to do a collaboration around the design, the protocols, guidelines, how to build Indigenous curriculum. We did some work at Edwards in this area. Last summer, Dean Mike Schmidt at the Dalhousie Faculty of Management, we did the Atlantic Business Schools Forum and really start to explore knowledge networks and research. We presented a number of business schools in the fall at SFU's Indigenous Leadership Executive MBA program. So these are very practical examples that the survey is going to help us accelerate this work. In the area of innovation and research collaborations, this is really a matching exercise. How do we match the Indigenous interests and ideas around economic and well-being research and match it with the expertise at your business schools? So we're going to be hosting a number of areas and networks and webinars and seminars following up on the survey. The survey is going to actually give us a picture of who's doing what. We'll be able to create networks of like-minded experts and subject matter areas, and then build those networks and see how it will lead to more Indigenous-informed research, protocols, guidelines, and eventually new research projects. So the impact, relevance, Indigenous communities being able to tap an innovation and research agenda. It's going to increase the engagement amongst all the players in the ecosystem, and it's going to transform our economies and increase well-being for everybody. So the fun part about all this is I was over in Australia in December at the Australian-New Zealand Academy of Management. This is all the New Zealand and Australia business schools. We're looking at Indigenous research and engagement on the international stage. And as Terry Lynn mentioned, next month, May 16th, there's a colloquium as part of the Administrative Sciences Association of Canada's National Conference. And these are the types of partnerships that we're going to be announcing and developing as we move forward. I'll give you one other little example. Building an Indigenous seaweed industry is an idea that came out of 2021. And Dr. Cross, I'd asked if anybody had an amazing idea that could be as big as the fur trade. And he said, well, seaweed's kind of important. $18 billion industry, growing 8% a year. And guess which country has the highest diversity of seaweed in the world? It's Canada. And who's got the least developed industry? Canada. So here's an opportunity. First Nations, Métis, Inuit on all coasts, Atlantic, Pacific, and Arctic, looking at how to really grow an Indigenous seaweed industry. So this is an area of, you can see knowledge, the networks, more knowledge mobilization. And there was a forum held in October 11th in Nanaimo. And on the far right, there's a gal, Selena McGuire, flew all the way from Australia. And she brought with her a kelp bowl, which is a traditional kelp bowl that was used to carry water and berries. And she brought that little plastic bottle, which is kelp food that people use in their houses to feed, their plants every day. They own the intellectual property. They had the research. They worked with researchers. They've commercialized this, and now they've got economic resources to fuel their social, economic, education needs. So it's a really good example of one industry and how do we now amplify this across many sectors, from artificial intelligence, tourism, food, trade, of course, in this in this era that we're in. These are all the pressing areas that we want to see and help facilitate and coordinate. So how are we building this? Elder Albert Marshall, Mi'kmaq from Eskasoni, spoke to our group in 2021. We've embraced two-eyed seeing as one of the Indigenous values, which is how do you value both traditional and Western ways of knowing and doing in order to benefit everybody? So just wanted to acknowledge our friend and guide, Albert Marshall. So let me conclude with this. What do you see when you look at these pictures, from snowshoes to ulus, birch bark canoes, teepees, igloos? On the far right, the boomerang. That grass on the far right is porcupine grass in Australia, which we use to create a thermal resin. These are all examples of Indigenous innovation. It's not new. We've been innovating for thousands of years. The goal now is how to tap that innovation spirit in today's modern terms and create Indigenous informed and Indigenous led models and strategies. With you, the business school, will be able to light this up and really accelerate this economic transformation and well-being for people, communities, the land, the water. It will be able to cover a range of things and stimulate multidisciplinary research with agriculture, medicine, anthropology, engineering, and of course, business schools. So, Terry Lynn and our Derek and Daniela, why are we all doing this? It's back to this: growing healthy economies, healthy communities, and a healthy workforce. Over to you, Terry Lynn.
Thanks, Kelly. So as you can see, this slide is pretty simple, but it's powerful, and it's about why you matter and why your leadership is essential to the success of this initiative. So to all the business school leaders that are with us today, just want to say you shape the culture, direction, and priorities for your institution. Your support signals that Indigenous engagement isn't just a side project, it's a core value. And when you champion this work, you create space for innovation, partnership, and reconciliation to thrive inside your schools. And together with the Indigenous business leaders, when we work together, when business school leaders listen and Indigenous leaders are given the true partnership, transformational change becomes possible. We're not just improving curriculum or research, we're reshaping how business education contributes to equity, prosperity, and Indigenous futures. When we go on to the next slide, it's one of the last ones. We're wrapping up here. So looking ahead, here's a quick summary of where we are and where we're headed. So we're looking to launch our Luminary website in the summer of 2025. We're going to also be launching our academic membership program this spring. Stay tuned for that. You'll hear about how we're proposing our Luminary journey to take business schools and other faculties through a journey to advance their reconciliation with Indigenous communities and to create curriculum. We're really excited about that, so stay tuned for that. We're looking to have the survey completed by May 16th. So mark that date down. It's pretty important. We're also asking, we will be sharing this recording of the webinar with you. And so if you know people in your network that didn't attend, but you think would really benefit from hearing the webinar, we ask that you share this webinar with your network, and also reach out if you have any questions. Our contact information is available on the next slide. So Kelly, myself, we also have Morgan, Craig, Tasha, Michael, Daniela, Derek, we're all here and available to help you in any way that you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you want to have a chat. So we're going to wrap up here and open it up to some questions and answers.